Donald Trump wants to take back the Panama Canal from Panama. Can he actually do that? Okay, so to answer that question, I did a lot of digging and research. So let me start with what Trump said in his inauguration speech, where he dedicated a significant chunk of time to talking about the Panama Canal. So he talked about Teddy Roosevelt, and then he said this. I mean, think of this. The U.S. spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Now, remember, this was Trump's inaugural address. It was only about 30 minutes long, and he dedicated a couple minutes to the Panama Canal, so it's obviously a really important thing for him. All right, so let's start with how we got here. First of all, the Panama Canal, if you don't know, effectively, the reason it's so valuable is it connects the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, which means it saves thousands of miles of ships travel to get through in between the two. Okay, that's why it's so valuable. And countries for many years prior to it being built have tried to build it. The French in the 1880s tried to build it, and it wound up failing because they didn't account for malaria and yellow fever. Okay, so early 1900s, Panama doesn't exist. It's a province of the country of Colombia. Theodore Roosevelt, get my Roosevelts confused, Theodore Roosevelt, who's president of the United States at the time, wants to build the Panama Canal, wants to connect the Atlantic and the Pacific, and wants the U.S. to own it. So what does he do? He helps foment an uprising, a separatist uprising that separates Panama from Colombia. He then immediately goes to the new Panamanian government and says, hey, look, I did this for you, and so you need to now allow us to build this, and we control it. Okay, so it takes a very long time, as you probably know. 1903 to it opens in 1914, so a little more than a decade. Now, Trump said 38,000 people died during the construction of it. I couldn't find that anywhere. The number I found was 5,600 people died in the construction of it. That's including 350 Americans. So the vast majority of the people who actually built the Panama Canal were not American. 2/3 of them were from Barbados or Martinique. Now, Trump is right. At the time, it cost $375 million to build the Panama Canal. It was the single most expensive public works project in history to that point. Okay, so we're turning along. The U.S. owns this strip within the country of Panama. Now, as you might guess, that doesn't sit all that well with lots and lots of Panamanians over time. Right? And the deal that we had made at the start with Panama was that we would pay them $10 million for that land, and we would pay them $250,000 with each successive year. But the Panamanians grow increasingly unhappy. In 1964, there's a huge uprising within about the canal and Panama wanting to control it. A decade and a half later, 1977, Jimmy Carter says, he basically issues two proclamations. One is that the canal control is going to be split between the U.S. and Panama starting in 1977. That same thing said that by December 31st, 1999, total control would be handed to Panama. So Panama has only totally controlled the Panama Canal for the last 25-ish years. The other order that Carter issues vis-a-vis the canal at that time in 1977, this will come to be relevant right now, is he says, excuse me, the U.S. has the right to invade militarily to protect the canal. So if the canal is under, potentially not being able to be traversed, the U.S. has the right to intervene. Okay. Nobody really thinks that much about it. It does pass. So Carter makes these proclamations. They pass the Congress, particularly the Senate, despite the fact that conservatives, even at the time, back in the late 70s, oppose this and say, why are we giving this away? Why are we splitting control of Panama? And then why are we giving it to Panama in the long run? Okay, it all happens. In 2007, Panama decides that it is going to hugely expand the Panama Canal in terms of the size of ships and how many can fit and all these sorts of things. They spend $5 billion of their own money, that's billion with a B, of their own money on this expansion, which goes finally into sort of becomes operational in 2016. So again, it's pretty recent, but Panama spends all that money. Okay, now I looked this up. In 2024, Panama made $5 billion in profit off of the canal and the fees that they charge ships and countries going in and out. Now, Trump has made a really big deal. Oh, one other thing about that. That $25 billion is a quarter of Panama's entire annual income. Okay, for a year. So it's a huge, huge chunk of what they do. Now, I looked this up because Trump has made obviously a big deal. He said in the inaugural address, like, we're paying all these unfair fees and they're robbing us. Now, over the last 26 years. So 1999 till now, the U.S. has paid Panama roughly $25 million. So a little less than $1 million a year in fees. Okay. That gets us to now. Panama, as you might guess, has spoken out pretty strongly against Donald Trump, saying that they either need to give it back to the United States or the United States is going to take it back. But as I noted, remember when when that proposal became law from 1977, Carter did say the U.S. has the right to intervene militarily if the Panama Canal is under threat. Could that be used as a justification for Trump to invade Panama to take back the canal for the U.S.? That strip of land, it's not huge, but that strip of land, put it back into U.S. control. I think there's some debate about that in the legal world, but that is absolutely the kind of path that he would take. Now, does Donald Trump really want to put U.S. boots on the ground, even though I would assume they would overrun the Panama forces pretty quickly, but does Donald Trump want to risk the potential of losing one American military life to take back the Panama Canal, which, again, we have spent less than $1 million on over the last 26 years? I don't think so, but I don't know so. So what will happen? I mean, I guess what Trump will try to do, if this is just a negotiating tactic, which I assume a lot of what he does is, he will try to cut a better deal with Panama. He will likely say, well, we need some piece of that $5 billion in profits because we built it. Even though you renovated it, we built it originally. And we're not going to be paying you $1 million a year in fees to use it. We're going to use it whenever we want. Do I think that could happen? Absolutely. Because we're a military giant and Trump is willing to use that might, and Panama is not. And Panama would probably rather have $4 billion a year than $0 billion a year in terms of revenue. So that's the Panama Canal. Can Trump take it back? Probably, if he wanted to, certainly militarily. Is there legal justification to do that? Maybe. Will we get to that point? I don't think so. My guess is Panama gives us a cut and Trump declares victory and everyone goes away mostly happy. All right. Anyway, that's the history of the Panama Canal. Totally fascinating to me, the politics and the building of it. As always, if you like this kind of stuff, I'm doing it every day. So if you like this kind of stuff, I need you to support me. So the ways you can do that. Number one, you can just subscribe to this channel. It's easy. It's free. Do it. It helps me grow. It helps me with the algorithm. It helps more people look at this. Same thing with liking this video. Just give it a thumbs up. Same thing with commenting on this video. The more engagement, the better for the algorithm. The more people see this stuff, the more I'm able to make and keep making these videos. And the last thing I ask you to do, because this is, we need to grow by word of mouth, right? If you like what I'm doing, go out and tell a few people about it. I always say tell 10 people. You want to tell 2 people, great. You want to tell 20 people, great. Just go out and say, hey, this guy is doing interesting stuff. It's not super partisan. He's an independent journalist. He's trying to be authentic and transparent and make us smarter. I'd really appreciate it. So thank you all for all of your support. We are absolutely surging in terms of viewership right now, in terms of subscribers. We're doing great. Thank you if you're already a subscriber, and if you're not, I hope this video makes you one. All right, everyone, take care.